Welcome, thanks for joining me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today I'm going to explore the conjunction, the exact connection in a unifying way between Mars and Uranus. This occurs on Monday the 15th of July, but this influence has been building up since the 11th of July within 3 degrees. It peaks on Monday but goes on through to the 20th. That's when Mars makes the switch into the sign of Gemini. Now, Mars and Uranus meet up in a conjunction once every 2 years. The last time was August in Taurus. The next one is going to be on the 4th of July 2026 in Gemini. And that's really an exciting event to look forward to. Now, this combination can be feisty, to say the least. Taurus is a sign of stability. It can be about money, our values, our self-worth. Mars is about thrust, it's about our ego, but also it's about action, and it can be about impatience. Uranus hates any kind of confinement. What are the two together going to bring to us? I'm going to explore it, share with you the fixed star that they're applying to, Algol, which has got a fearsome reputation. I'm going to share the event charts with you. The Placidus natal chart sees Mars and Uranus in house 7, very much about relationships. But of course the solar chart really is much more aligned to the zodiac sign, so they're in house 2. Please stay with me. I will then go through each of the 12 signs from Aries through to Pisces to give you a flavour of what you can expect right through to the 20th of July. If you're new to my channel, it's lovely to have your company. This is very much a community. Please share any thoughts you have. If you're a returning visitor, as always, your views and interactions are truly appreciated. If you're a patron, I'll upload some factoids on this particular event. My patrons are really important to me. You can become one from $3 a month. Thank you so much for your support. Now, I'm a consulting astrologer. If you'd like to have a one-to-one with me, please check out my testimonials below. Like to get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning? Please see the link below where you can subscribe. If you'd like to ascend above zodiac horoscopes and embrace the power of natal astrology, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data, of time, date and place, or date and place, if you don't know your time, I can produce for you your life roadmap report. This will give you searing insights into the patterns that are played out in your life so far, but also it can help you to work with those energies more effectively future forwards. In my special package of 30% off, you can get your 12 months transits, the interacting between the moving planets in the sky and your completely unique blueprint. If you know your tropical astrology, why not check out my Draconic package? Get a feel for your soul and karmic astrological insights. Please see below for more. So, exact Monday, the 15th of July, 2024. And this event occurs at 26 degrees and 19, and Algol, that fearsome fixed star, is at 26 degrees and 10. Now that can be a very dark energy, can be very passionate, very much to do with desire, which Mars in itself can obviously be about, but also it can be to do with violence. Now, we have seen in Britain 2 incredibly violent events have occurred recently, but also on the world stage. You know, it just seems to be that more and more stuff gets served up, doesn't it? Very, very concerning. But how can we work with this energy, and how can we make it work for us positively too? Well, as I mentioned, the last one occurred on the 1st of August 2022, and since then Uranus and Mars have moved on. So they've moved on around about 8 degrees. But if you have got a fixed planet, which is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio or Aquarius, and you do have influences that go pretty well from about 23 through to about 29 degrees, then obviously the angular nature of your charts interacting with this event could create more tension. Because one of the things about the sign of Taurus is it's a fixed sign. So therefore it likes continuity, but it can find flexing more challenging. And of course what Uranus has been doing, if we go right back to when it first moved into Taurus on the 15th of May 2018, it's been pushing lots of different provocative energies around the things that Taurus influences: land, money, cash, anything to do with agriculture, food costs, anything that we get out from the earth, such as oil and coal. Everything's gone up enormously in price. And so the volatility that Uranus can create is very much part of what we've been working with since then. But did you know that when Uranus first moved into Taurus all those years ago, for that first initial 5 months, it was squaring up with Mars? So now we have them more integrated together. A conjunction is when two planets are aligned exactly in the sky. And Mars can bring a greater sense of impatience and maybe even a much more reactive energy. And that's something we do need to be mindful of, because Uranus is very much about trying to find our most unique version of ourselves. It rules the sky in mythology, but it's also an impatient and innovative energy. So it can create this combination, some great speed if we don't resist. If we try to go with it, something could happen very, very fast that could be very fortunate. But if we resist, that's when that can create a natural amount of friction and a lot of abrasion, and that's when there could be some serious falling outs, particularly over possessions, principles, points of view, values, but critically also money. And relationships generally, I think, under the auspices of this particular aspect, can be quite unpredictable. And of course, we may encounter someone who's very willful, which is the nature of Mars, and determined to assert their particular worldview on us. In other words, that dogma, and that could create some arguments. However, if you are an adventurous person and you have felt that you've been not really getting in touch with that as much as you would like, this is a push to try to break out and do something that really challenges you, that's a bit more on the edge. So if you are someone who likes to do things that are fast and furious and take you out of your comfort zone and really make your pulse rate race, this is the perfect aspect for you. But essentially, if you feel that you've been in some ways putting your originality, your individuality to one side, this aspect is pushing you to celebrate that in a much more wholesome way. Now on the screen now I'm showing the event chart from a Placidus viewpoint. As ever, I'm using Greenwich, not because I'm in the UK, because of the prime meridian, and I'm also using universal time, not British summertime. So there's the duo in house 7, very much about how we connect to people, but also house 7 can be where we set our boundaries. If we feel that someone's trying to push us around, we could be quite ferocious in pushing back. But we do have a little bit of mitigation coming from the dreamy drifting energy of Neptune in Pisces. And also the Sun is in touch with these two as well. And in fact, over the next week, what basically the Sun is saying is that if we can use the sensory energies of the Sun in Cancer, our instincts, but not be too adhered to or too rigid to what we know and feel most comfortable with, we could let those new approaches, those fresh approaches work in, and that can be very positive. Now on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart from a solar perspective, which we can all collectively relate to, and there they are in house 2. So that's much more the potential to be much more impulsive with resources, even if we've been very disciplined, suddenly splashing out on something because we just get the yearning to go for it. But also, of course, Mars can be about sex, the second house, and Taurus very much about intimacy and getting up close to people. So there is the chance that some people could have some kind of fleeting connection. But if that's what both people want, well, that's down to them, isn't it? Because that may be perfectly acceptable to both sides. But if you do encounter someone who is larger than life, but on somewhat of a mission, but it's not necessarily your mission. Don't feel you have to fall in behind them. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs, from Aries through to Pisces, to give you a flavour of what you can expect through to the 20th of July. So Aries, for you, I feel that anything you're attached to, or anything that you feel very strongly about in terms of your self-worth. So for example, if you feel that someone's being very pushy towards you, making demands from you about working overtime or changing your shift pattern, or perhaps making some alterations at home if you've got someone that you're sharing a property with and they're being quite demanding and they want it very much on their terms, that part of you, which can be a lot more assertive, which of course Mars is very much about, can really fire up, and you can let them know in no uncertain terms that what's yours is yours. But equally, if you are trying to find new and novel ways to improve your everyday income, this combination could just give you the push to perhaps take something that's been drifting around in the back of your mind to make it come to life and put it into actual action, so things could move quickly. But I do think that you're one of the zodiac signs that may find it a bit more difficult to keep your hands in your pocket, particularly as because you've got Mercury and Venus in the part of your horoscope that's very much to do with speculation. So if you do feel like splashing out on something or having a flutter, that could be something you're drawn towards over the next few weeks. But equally, you could declutter at home, create some space, sell off some items you no longer need, create more energy flowing around the house, and put a few bob in your pocket. What's not to like? Now Taurus, it's interesting for you because ever since Uranus moved for those first 5 months into your sign in 2018 and from March 2019 full time, depending on where you have your sun, ascendant or moon or other personal planets, it's likely that Uranus has had quite the effect already. Now because stability is something you have a great appreciation for, the moon, which is to do with the home, emotion and family, is exalted. It rises in the sign of Taurus. So at times it may have felt unsettling if Uranus is almost being sort of pushing or prodding you to do something different. Or is it people around you? Or is it just your immediate environment has kept changing without any particular control from you? Concurrent to this, of course, you've had Pluto making its way through your 9th house, which has been expanding your horizons, giving you a taste for, even greater taste for travel, higher education, new knowledge. So how have those two things played out for you? If you are born later into the sign of Taurus, it may be that you've yet to experience the full power of Uranus, because Uranus is a very, very potent influence. So if you feel that you've been a little bit immune to the agenda for change, or you felt quite satisfied with how your life has been, you might be surprised by how much things seem to just get much more fluid. And that's when, if you resist, things can cause some tension. One of the ways you could feel tension would be through headaches, for example. But what you could do with this particular aspect is decide to surf it, embrace it. Remember, Mars can be about, through its rulership of Aries, the body. So you may decide to suddenly get much more active. Now, I know whenever anyone ever talks about getting fitter, they always say go in stages. Don't go from a born-again couch potato to an aspirational Olympian. You know, you've got to take your time. But of course, Mars and Uranus together can be a very impatient influence. And if you encounter someone and you're trying to express a new and fresh idea and they're finding it hard to pick up on where you're coming from, you may find yourself getting really exasperated a lot quicker. But if you are someone who generally is a little bit more laid back, you may surprise yourself by feeling a bit tetchy, needing your own space, perhaps wanting to start or do something completely and utterly different. And if so, good for you. Gemini, your agility and speed of thought, sense of humour, you're such a whiz, but it also at times, that ability to pivot quickly can see you step aside or deflect some pressing issues that may require further analysis. And you also communicate your emotions through your intellect. And emotions are that. They are complex, they're sometimes messy, they're not always obvious. We all have a part of our nature, our shadow side, that we find much more difficult to integrate into our whole. But if you are someone who's a dedicated follower of personal development, you have counselling, you're very much into using apps in terms of understanding some of your responses, I feel that you probably have, with Uranus's help in recent years, grown enormously your understanding. You may have also used your awesome communication skills to help other people understand their psychology a lot more. But something very turbulent could come to the surface between now and the 20th of July. And this can be true for a lot of Geminis, to be honest. But Mars is about desire. The 12th house is where we use power, and power perhaps in a more stealthy way, but not necessarily always in a fair way. So watch out for some public figures. You might know some of their names, but they could find that some more information is going to surface that they won't be happy that does. But in terms of your personal situation, do be aware that in traditional astrology, the 12th house is known to be about hidden enemies. But I feel those hidden enemies can sometimes be ourselves setting our expectations too high about what some people will give us. So be very realistic, but particularly at work, be aware that there will be office machinations. And someone around you may be very charming, but actually may have an agenda. So keep your guard up a little bit, but just be aware that since Mars moved into your 12th house 5 weeks ago, he has been stirring up some sediment for some old issues that you may have thought you dealt with. And that could have been overstimulating your system if you have been experiencing some infections, for example, or you felt a little bit overwhelmed at times, or you felt that your temper was a little bit on a short rein, or at other times you felt immensely emotional for no obvious reason. All of this can reach a crescendo with this particular influence. So just be aware of trying to embrace those awkward bits that we all have, every single one of us. Any judgment you have on yourself, any fears and anxieties, bring it all in and hug it tight. And if there are some situations where you feel under pressure or threatened, just be aware that if you do need to in some ways defend yourself, that is okay. But just plan your strategy before you feel that energy really hit in. Cancer, you have a justifiable reputation for stability. And because the Sun is in your sign at the present time and linking actually very positively to this Mars-Uranus conjunction, there is an opportunity here to embrace a potential shift or new direction that really excites you, but still maintain the continuity about the things that you do feel are right for you. Because the 11th house is about our long-term plan, but it's also about what really inspires us beyond the material plane, which is dominated by house 10. The 11th house can also be about our connections, our friendships, can also be about sport, whether we play it or support it, and something quite dramatic can happen for you over the next few weeks, but it could be something that you can really turn into a huge victory. For example, someone could offer you the chance to do something that's very fresh, and you may at first feel a little unsure whether to go for it or not. But if you do decide to plunge in, it could work out spectacularly well. But just also be aware that if there are people in your social circle or friendships that are not so aligned to you, there is the chance that someone in some ways could niggle or get under your skin. And you're not someone who likes direct confrontation generally, and Mars and Uranus is very much about direct confrontation. So be aware of that's a possibility for sure. So Leo, Mars and Uranus cresting on your 10th house could be that final push to really seize an opportunity to reset your professional and worldly interactions. Let's go right back to May the 15th, 2018, when Uranus first moved into the sign of Taurus It was squared up with Mars in your 7th house. There may have been a major falling out or tension with a family member at that time, to be honest, or perhaps it was something to do with where you live, like a big intense exchange with a landlord or perhaps a lender. But do you know, since then, slowly but surely, Uranus has been challenging that part of you that can be more conservative, because you have this reputation for drama, charisma and radiance, which is all utterly deserved. When you're on form, few can compete with you, but you do also have that side of you that can stick with what you know, because it just means you don't have to in any way let your need to be respected as a minimum, liked, yes, I'll have that, admired, absolutely, adored, well, that's your maximum. That's your absolute perfect scenario. So sometimes you'll stay with what you've got, because taking a walk into the dark, if you like, means that you could expose yourself in some ways to a judgment that could be wounding. And that is really the challenge here. So if you have been developing some new ideas, you're in the public eye more, you're living out your rock and roll identity a lot more, great for you. You've been working with Mars and Uranus before now. If you've yet to take that step, so for example, you are born later into Leo, from around about 23 to about 29 degrees, then maybe this is your chance to radically revolutionize your approach to work, your goals and ambitions, or even the people that you're involved with. But certainly your leadership potential has an opportunity to sparkle, but it does require you to step into the sunlight and really go for it. Virgo, I'm really loving this aspect for you, because your dedication, your responsibility, your awareness of what people need from you, therefore your reliability, your ability to perform tasks efficiently, all gives you a fantastic set of skills. But at times, and I have been saying this to you for some while, I feel it can pulverise your passion. And I think what Pluto's been doing ever since it moved into Aquarius for the 11 weeks last year, and since Jan 21 this year, has been pushing you to revise where you do show those sacrifices, where you are dedicated, where you are very responsible. And this energy that started to manifest through Taurus season and is being repeated with this aspect is really pushing you to be much more daring if that's what you personally need. So if something really has become stale, you're not really enjoying it anymore, it's lost its luster, perhaps even going to the same holiday destination many times because it's felt comfortable and cozy, doing something completely different could really just be the thrill you need. But if you are someone who's ever wanted to do anything for charity, like abseil down the side of a hospital, or throw yourself out of a plane for a sponsored parachute jump, this aspect is the type of thing that really could whet your appetite. But equally, it may just be that you need to assert your need for a bit more independence. So if you are someone who has a lot of obligations, a lot of responsibilities, a lot resting on you, you know, whether you go and play football or rugby in your local team, or hockey, or do some running, something very vigorous that you do for you could be something you could really gain from this situation. But of course, Mars can be very much about impatience, and the 9th house can be about travel. If you are heading off somewhere and you're behind the wheel, put your elbow out the window and just enjoy the journey. I really wouldn't rush it, because this particular aspect can be prone, to be honest, to accidents. So just look after yourself and enjoy having a little bit of space and freedom, and that will be something that really will be good for your soul. So Libra, there's lots of ways that we can think about the 8th house, because the 8th house is the 8th zodiac sign, if you like, and that is where Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. Now that's much more to do with instant gratification. It can be to do with sex, can be to do with much more expensive purchases, big ticket items. Uranus could be that you're going to be drawn magnetically to someone who just really, really excites you. And even though you often like to weigh things up very carefully before pitching in, you may find that side of your nature is challenged. But equally, the 8th house can be about resources, investments, entrepreneurship, innovation, of course, with Uranus in the mix. And because they're both linking so well to the Sun in the most prominent part of your situation, right through to the 20th of this month, it wouldn't surprise me at all if, in terms of your work, skills that you've developed over time that are steeped in great experience but have some kind of novelty or fresh approach linked to them could make you someone that people are really drawn to. So that could be something you can really bring to life in a very positive way. But equally, if you are in any kind of relationship, whether it's with your flatmate, a business partner, some friends, the family, or a lover, and you're squabbling over money, it's going to be a big squabble with this event, because Taurus can be very, very stubborn, but that 8th house energy is essentially about a need to change. And of course, Uranus is about change, but Uranus doesn't like being in Taurus. As we know, it's in full. It's actually exalted in your sign. So it could be that something needs to change. And if you're going with it, fine. If you're not, it could cause a lot of friction, and something may need to change quite quickly. So if an opportunity comes up, seize it. But at the same time, if you do need to restructure something, trying to resist it might not be the best thing. Just creating more abrasion, more resistance, more sparks, if you like, but not necessarily in such a good way. So Scorpio, interesting for you, because Uranus is actually a planet that's exalted in your sign, and Mars, of course, is your traditional ruler. The 7th house is where we connect to others, but it's also what we need, but it's also what other people expect from us. But having Mars on the 7th house makes it much more difficult to have relationships that are harmonious, to be honest, because it can be so determined to set those boundaries, particularly with the defiance of Uranus applying, that actually we end up getting our own way, but it's a bit of a hollow victory. So it's important to understand the power of this combination, but not overuse it. You know, the old saying of using a sledgehammer to crack a nut comes to mind. So if someone is irritating, you know, in your local shop or whatever, that's not the best situation to apply the frustration that can go with this aspect. But if you're in a relationship of any kind at all, and you don't feel that somebody tends to be very aware or respectful of your needs or your situation, you can find your voice in a very powerful way, particularly as the Sun links to these two. In your 9th house, your higher truth. And you could use this aspect absolutely to your advantage. Equally, if there is someone you really like, this combination can give you a bit more confidence, particularly if you run a bit more on the reserve side to make that first move. We're never going to win the lottery unless we buy that ticket, as you know. And of course, it could be that you will do something and it might not be received as you want, but at least you'll know. And if you don't do anything, well, nothing will happen for sure. So the energy of Mars and Uranus here is about risk, but it's not about over-risking, oversharing, or being over-assertive. It's about finding that right balance. Not necessarily very easy, but I think if you are wanting in some ways to make something evolve around a relationship situation, this is definitely an opportunity. Well, Sagittarius, ever since March 2019, there may have been times when you have felt profoundly frustrated. But you know, if you think back about what you used to do for your job or how your routines used to be, there's probably been a lot of positive changes over these recent years, even if it doesn't feel like you've quite got to where you want to exactly be, and things are still in some kind of flux. And the flux has really been turned up because of the role of Saturn. Because Saturn's been emphasising the last 15 months your emotional situation, your family life, where you live. And it's given you a different approach. So some of the things in the old days when, you know, you'd be much more of a free spirit and probably gallivanting around a lot more and really enjoying that freedom and independence, you've actually had a lot of things come into your life which are feeding you at a much more earthy and emotional level that have actually been really positive, but it may still feel that you've had to give up quite a lot to get what you've got now. And if there is a sense of resentment, particularly if you are really conscientious and very much a giver, you know, whether you have got planets in Scorpio or also in Capricorn, possible, and that freedom love inside of your nature has got really muted, this particular combination could see the frustration that you've been manifesting in some ways really show up. So you could feel very edgy and find it difficult to sit still, maybe through to the 20th of July. There could be some aches and pains. Maybe things that in the past you would just shake off could be rather irritable. Just be aware that maybe you're being a bit too self-critical as well. But also there's the potential for improvements because of the role of the sun. So the sun in the 8th house is saying that things are evolving. If you look at, again, at something that's stuck, particularly around the domestic scene or around your health, and you haven't quite found the solutions you want, Uranus is about new ideas, fresh approaches, the type of thing that really you're usually very open to. So be open about even those fundamental everyday parts of life if they are seeming to be a little bit resisting to what you really want. And a fresh pair of eyes or a rethink could unlock some important opportunities through to the 20th of July. Capricorn, I've said it before and I'll say it again. When you get going, you've got such a brilliant sense of humour. But of course, your great gift is your persistence, your application, the fact that you have a great sense of self-discipline. And the persistence that you often show is a great gift. But the cresting up of Mars and Uranus in your 5th house is pushing you to do something that's really fun, maybe a bit edgy. Be a little bit more devil may care. You know, if there's something you've never done before because you always thought that was for others, this is your chance to reset your outlook. Sometimes our thinking can get a little bit stuck and we can have a particular way of responding to situations and we don't actually challenge ourselves. And I think in a way, if you can use the honesty that Uranus provokes in the urgent combination with Mars, it could be that you could just in some ways prod yourself in a new direction that creates up some drama, but also creates some excitement that can be good for you. Now, if you'd like to meet someone romantically, the 5th house is very much about romance, but it's also about your social life. You may find that some unexpected invitations come your way through to the 20th. Take them, because it actually can be like a breath of fresh air. But if a current a love relationship has got stale, rather stuck in its ways, try to take the lead. You can take that approach where it has to be the partner that changes, so it becomes very leveraged and that creates a power struggle. But if you can think, look, I'll be the leader in this situation, I'll show the inspiration, and that can reinvigorate things and inject that flame of passion that you perhaps had when you first met. So it could be by just having a day out, going to watch a film or a band. Just doing something off the cuff can be like that proverbial breath of air. So Aquarius, Mars and Uranus combining in your 4th house can be a bit prickly, to be honest. If we think about Mars in Cancer, which is a kind of 4th housey energy, Mars is in its full there and it's not a great location for it. Talk about passive aggressive. So if we put it in the 4th house in a stubborn sign like Taurus that's fixed next to your modern ruler Uranus, which can't be told by anyone what to do, very independent minded. If you've got a very strong Uranian chart like I have, that was what it was like a lot when I was younger, probably was. So if there is something about a family politics where someone decides that they're going to always be the teller and you've got to be the receiver, that part of you that's been carefully marshalling your emotions for some while may find it very, very difficult to stay stum on under the auspices of this particular event. But more positively, if you have been putting off, doing some decorating, decluttering, getting that new bathroom suite making some physical changes. Mars, this particular aspect can give you a lot of urgency, but there can also be a lot going on around your family. So if you've got older children, could be going off to uni, coming back from uni, leaving home, coming back home, lots of sort of changes, ins and outs. So a bit of unpredictability for sure, perhaps not in a dull way, but if there is something you feel strongly about emotionally, just be aware that the response with this aspect can be defensiveness. And if it is around an emotional issue or a financial issue, and you feel someone really isn't playing fair, then you could find yourself being much more militant in the way that the archetype for Aquarius is often structured, which really is based on Uranus. People often forget about the Saturnian side of Aquarius, people which love stability, loves routines and patterns and traditionality. No, that all gets forgotten when we look at popular astrology. It's all about the daring, rather zany Uranian energy, which is not true at all. Most Aquarius people have that the duality of those two planets coexisting within them. So depends on your unique situation, but if you are living somewhere that you're really cheesed off with, you put up with it long enough, you can take the action now to make a change or improve it or speak out your truth, because remember, Uranus is about truth, and the fourth house is family. So Pisces, this combination points towards movement, but the sign of Taurus points towards resistance, slowing things down. What do we make of it? Well, Mars in the third house is brilliant for journalists, footballers, because it's quick, it's dynamic. So we put it next to Uranus. If you are someone who loves to cycle, for example, if you get out over this weekend and have a good thrash on your bike or go for a nice hard run, you'll be surfing this energy admirably. But the other thing that can happen is that maybe we can speak quickly. We're not necessarily considering our thoughts so carefully. So it's a much more instant response. But quick and short journeys are possible as well. But also, as I've mentioned recently, I think I read somewhere that there's a much greater risk of accidents on short journeys because we don't really dial our minds in. We can be a bit distracted, sort of adjusting the radio settings and stuff like that as we go down to the local store. So important to concentrate if you are making short journeys. And also the third house could be that something you want to move, and it could be something intellectual, an idea you have, or it could be something physical. Something will move. It's almost like the Three of Wands. There's going to be some energy, movement, but it's going to be exciting. But if you do feel contained or constrained, that could create some frustration. Or if you encounter someone who has a very different belief system from you, third house, beliefs, and we live in such a polarized society now, you never know who's going to be taking which side of which debate. And there are so many big debates across the world. So be aware that you could get caught in one where your view and the other person's view does not conform, and that can create some tension. So just be conscious of that, but a lot of excitement with this particular aspect for you personally. So if you want to do something off the cuff, go for it. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me for this Mars-Uranus conjunction. Have a great couple of weeks with this aspect, making those innovations work with lots of energy and pace. Take care, and if you've yet to subscribe, please do so now.